Good afternoon. Thank you for sticking around. Thank you for attending our first North American HEDNA Distribution Masterclass, a play in 3 acts. Now, what do we have planned? This is motivated and inspired by a conversation I had a few months ago with Jason here. We started talking about what's happening in the industry with systems, with distribution. And he was talking to me about his research, and I was like, hey, I need to dive into that. And as we discovered this research and the results and the work that he's doing, we're like, we could turn this into a masterclass in New Orleans and talk about the changes that are happening to technology, driven by a lot of factors that we'll dive into, and what it means to hotels, what it means to distribution, what it means to travel, and what the changes are. So today we're kicking it off with Jason, talking about his research, and then we're giving the stage to 3 acts. Act 1 is, of course, about PMS, discovering distribution, or maybe they've already discovered distribution, entering distribution. Act 2 is the CRSs and channel managers saying, wait a minute, I'm also here, I'm still around, right? And then Act 3 is about pivots and changes and new opportunities. Now, all of this may include a sales pitch or 2 of the people that will be here on stage, and they will talk about all the fantastic new tools that they're developing and launching. So I want to close this entire session with a reality check at the end. And I want to sit down with both the branded hotels as well as the independent hotels and say, is this real? Is this going to happen? Is this going to change your life? And how can we get on this journey together? So without further ado, I'm excited to welcome Jason here on stage. He's going to wear his professor hat today, and I'm going to dive into, hey, what are you teaching these days?
Yeah, so hi everyone. I teach the hotel distribution class at NYU. Back in 2020, I was running technology and distribution for Atelier Ace, or Ace Hotels, and I got furloughed due to the pandemic. And I was asked by a good friend and mentor if I wanted to teach this class with him, hotel distribution. There was no textbook. There was a very rough syllabus, and it was an elective class at NYU. And this individual, some of you have actually joined the class and know this guy, Dave Pavelko, works over at Google. We split up this class, 7 classes each, to really teach both undergraduates and graduates how the supply of hotels meets the demand of guests. And then what does that actually mean? How do the pipes actually work? What are the technologies that are used to accomplish that? And then for hotels, what does that actually mean? A head in a bed from one channel is not equal to the other. So really understanding things like contribution profit and others. And then we started building out this class for graduates and undergraduates and have been teaching it for the past few years. Now we're really excited to be working with HEDNA. We're writing a textbook in the space and looking to actually get it approved as a mandatory class in order for individuals to graduate from the Tisch Center of Hospitality.
Wait, distribution is making it into universities?
Yeah, so what we were surprised about was that people did not really have a distribution background in or within education. Revenue management, systems, other things are taught and required, but distribution hasn't been. And it kind of surprised us, those who have worked on the distribution side, that you'd have 10 students a semester coming through this class. And we think it's an opportunity to be able to show distribution to a broader audience and really have them understand how the guests arrive in these buildings and be able to have a better understanding of all the channels and be able to contextualize what they mean for the hotels.
So let's put ourselves in this class, right? These are students that are somewhere between late teens, mid-20s, post-grad and undergrad.
Yes.
Are they teaching you about technology and social media and what to do? Like, who's teaching whom here?
Yeah, they do teach us a lot. There are a lot of international students, so we learn a lot about the walled gardens from them and learn about different approaches, especially internationally. But we find it fascinating that the understanding around how the pipes actually work out, how this actual hotel room is able to be bought and sold across all these different channels is really not well understood as students are going through and graduating with either master's or undergraduate degrees within hospitality. So our whole goal is to demystify that and to be able to really break down an understanding of direct and indirect channels and how the students are able to gain knowledge around optimization of these channels. So when they do enter hospitality within any number of different areas, either on the ownership side or the management company side or operations, we want them to understand how these rooms are bought and sold in order to be able to help do a better job informing their decision making.
So you teach the principles, right? And then they're exposed to the actual tools and services. They enter hotels, they're faced with, here's a PMS, here's a channel manager, here's a CRS. Are we teaching these systems or the principles of these systems in school today, or is this still something that we have yet to develop? What's happening?
So NYU, I think, has done a very good job with their high technology incubator, where they have brought in systems and technologies to educate. Okay. And what they recognized was that systems understanding is critically important in order to be able to really recognize what's in there, what are the systems that allow things to happen, and then being able to get hands-on experience within these systems to be able to have a leg up when they actually do get into the workforce. So we think it's very important to be able to introduce them to people who are working in the space, as well as the systems that they are either developing or working with in order to have a better understanding.
No. Now, when we first spoke, you mentioned your research, and I want to dive into this, which, you looked into the landscape of hospitality technology. What were your findings? Let's, keep it high level.
So we wrote an article, I co-authored an article with Laura Kalin from Oracle Hospitality about just the changing landscape and what we coined blurred lines. What we've seen is that these acronym-based systems, the PMS, the CRS, the channel managers, the traditional definitions are really getting blurred. You're seeing the traditional channel managers getting into more of the operational management, more of the property management systems getting into distribution or channel management themselves. So where those traditional lines of demarcation existed, now due to cloud infrastructure and due to the shift away from on-premise hardware, has now enabled what we're coining are really hospitality platforms. These systems that generally on and above property systems, 20 or more the average is about 20 for a hotel. You're now seeing that these providers are doing more. So you're seeing an encroachment of technologies. The PMS is really doing more than it ever had before, and we're seeing that the shift to cloud is really the accelerant there.
So without the property using a cloud-based system, this is not even possible today. Is the cloud really the key unlocking innovation technology?
Yeah, so in the research that we were doing, we find that it's the accelerant. Okay. Because when the systems were on-premise, there was really data silos and really data fragmentation that had existed, which made it much more difficult for available information to be shared across different systems, which really trickled down to distribution. It made it much more difficult to be able to do it. So you created secondary systems with ARI, availability rate and inventory, that was not a primary data set. It was PMS is the main source of availability rates and inventory, and you get other systems that sit on top of it, which ended up creating additional operational issues for the properties, as well as additional costs that were added on top. But because there now is capabilities associated with cloud-based architecture, you now have democratized data to be able to allow this information to more freely flow between systems, where you're not seeing the data silos. So I think it's creating a new age of opportunity within hotels to be able to shrink the stacks, simplify the operational complexity associated, and be able to streamline. And that's really what we have been observing.
Okay, interesting. So you mentioned a couple of numbers here. 20 systems is the average that any hotel here in North America uses today to manage their business. And we're not talking about the thermostat in the room, right?
No. No, we're talking about on and above property systems to be able to sell their rooms and operate their property.
Okay, wow.
Yeah.
You also mentioned that the maximum that you've come across is how many systems?
Yeah, so there's a quote from Tyler Morse, 65 systems that he's had to stitch together for the TWA Hotel in New York. So just imagine that amount of information. And historically, we were kind of handcuffed to point-to-point connectivity, right? You have a hub and spoke model where everything kind of had to connect, and if it didn't connect, sorry, like really couldn't work together. But now you're seeing that the cloud-based architecture is opening up abilities to be able to connect like we haven't been able to before. So this data is able to truly democratize across different systems and be able to inform the hotel to be able to distribute their products more efficiently and gain more profit.
All right. Which systems are going to disappear? You think this is a huge opportunity for somewhat of a consolidation, for somewhat of a, I guess, simplification of tech stack.
Yeah.
What is going to go disappear?
So instead of saying something will disappear, I'm going to rephrase it a little.
Okay. No names, please.
So instead of a traditional property management system acronym, I would say that the evolution is towards this idea of a hospitality platform. This idea that the operational piece has to work in concert with the distribution components. Mm-hmm. And that is really the evolution of what we're seeing from the major technology providers. They are creating the combination of the operations and the distribution in order to be able to serve the hotels, where there really is not this wall that exists between these systems, that there needed to be an expensive connection to be able to put them together. They're now becoming one, so there is a consolidation, and in doing so, there is a simplification of overall number of systems.
Let's maybe use for the audience an example so that we can actually sort of pinpoint what you're referring to. When systems moved into the clouds, we suddenly had point solutions.
Yes.
Think of like, there's a booking engine, there's an upsell tool, there is a guest communication tool. What is merging from your perspective? What's coming together?
All of those things that you just said, I really am excited about the context of this afternoon conversation, because we'll be hearing from the traditional PMS providers. Mm-hmm. But as they're talking, I think most of them have a booking engine. Mm-hmm. Most of them have built-in channel management or traditional, what you would consider central reservation system capabilities. So those lines of the traditional acronyms of what defined a PMS no longer define these companies any longer. Mm-hmm. But they also have the operational complexity associated with what they're able to do with service optimization systems and the ability to be able to fully run a hotel. Mm-hmm. So no longer are they constrained in terms of what they are building to just be pigeonholed in an operational system. They are now able to sell and be these commerce systems as well.
Wow, that is fascinating. So, I mean, I don't want to be in between what we are about to discover. So thank you so much for sharing your insights and your experience around this. Do stick around, because I can't wait to sort of do the reality check at the end. I want to hand it over to Philippe, who will introduce his panel of experts to talk about PMS and expanding into distribution. And yeah, I'll be back for the end. So with that, thank you very much.